President Biden is drawing criticism over his plans for 9/11. He's set to break a 22-year-old tradition by marking the anniversary of the deadly terror attack in Alaska. Every other commander-in-chief since that horrific day has observed the somber occasion from either the White House or at one of the attack sites. But not this year. President Biden will be wrapping up his climate change trip to Vietnam the day before, and the White House says he will then travel to a military base in Alaska and spend 9/11 at a memorial ceremony with those service members and their families. Emily, why?
Alaskans are Americans. So 100%, he is spending that day that should be spent in observance and remembrance and in honoring the sacrifice that Americans have made with Americans. That being said, to me, 9/11 is something that you plan your presidential schedule all around. It's like those of us normal people who say, oh, my sister's getting married on this day, so this is what we're planning everything out for the year. So the fact that he chose, or his advisors chose, to plan a trip to Vietnam to discuss climate change, oh gosh, and then it's 9/11, so okay, oh, I know, we'll spend it in Alaska. It comes and reads as an afterthought. It reads as a dismissal. And the First Lady at Arlington National Cemetery and the Vice President will be here at the World Trade Center. To me, that is not the same thing as my Commander-in-Chief honoring those lives that were lost and the lives that were lost in the disastrous Afghan withdrawal and in those 20 years since that he decided to announce on 9/11 also. We know how he treats Gold Star families. We know how he treats the American people. This is one more nail in that hideous coffin, but it's the biggest slap in the face of them all.
Ian, Emily mentioned the fact that Biden and company picked September 11th as the withdrawal date, the symbolic date for the Afghanistan withdrawal. They kind of changed it and moved it into August, but they clearly were aiming for the Afghanistan withdrawal for some kind of political mojo, and they wound up, because of their poor planning, killing 13 service members.
Well, they never should have planned it for any kind of political mojo. It should have been operational security.
Right.
That's your number one and your only concern. Now, the fact that he's going to be in Alaska, the fact that he agreed to this climate change seminar, I mean, you are the president of the United States of America. Reschedule it. If you want us there, you'll reschedule it, because it's September 11th. I'm either going to be at the World Trade Center, I'm going to be at the Pentagon. That's where I'm going to be. You reschedule this thing, or the United States is not participating.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about Alaska, and everyone's an American. Everyone in the 50 states, they're American. But there is massive symbolism in this. And what makes me sad about it is I wonder if this is going to set off some sort of trend of we're starting to forget a little bit. It's been 22 years, just like what happened to Pearl Harbor. We've started, that kind of got replaced by 9/11 as the most catastrophic thing to ever happen on our soil. And are we now, is it losing its importance? And the symbolism you talk about, don't plan on a withdrawal on September 11th. Don't do that. Is a sacred day. And I know that often, football games are played on that day. It always kind of made me cringe a little bit. But I will say the NFL did a good job of honoring that day and that observance. But my gosh, this one doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Kennedy, Joe Biden told President Obama to wait on the raid, the Navy SEAL raid that killed Osama bin Laden. And that's in President Obama's book. So maybe that he's not in New York City or Shanksville or at the Pentagon. Maybe people are like, good. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Emily. It's not a priority. So whoever is advising him, they have taken their eye off of what it means to be an American and the few things that we have to reflect and pause about. And this certainly is, arguably the most important. This is something that we can't forget, but there's a new generation of kids. They don't know what 9/11 is. It is not being taught in schools. You've got schools that have been hijacked by ultra-liberal, ultra-progressive teachers' unions. And, obviously they don't teach civics. They despise American history. And this is one of those things that they want to be total revisionists about that. You've got Ilhan Omar. And it's not important to her. She's like, oh, yeah, some days, some guys did something. And that's the mentality of the people who are advising the president. or he's got people around him who are so young that, you know, they maybe weren't directly affected by 9/11. They don't have those visceral memories that we share together every single year because it's still resonating in each and every one of us, especially, you know, people like you who are living in New York City, who know families who lost firefighters and police officers and people who worked at the World Trade Center. You know, it's like those stories, they are still very much alive, though the people have passed. And that's what this president is turning his back on, you know, just by virtue of agreeing to that summit on September 10th. You are turning your back on something critically important that happened to America and to Americans.
But maybe this way President Biden avoids insulting or hurting or damaging a grieving loved one, because we still grieve today.
Yes.
And every time he faces somebody who's hurting, he makes it about himself.